Shrek 5 is easily one of the most anticipated animated movies of the next few years, and it makes total sense. The generation that grew up watching the original films now has kids of their own, which means the same fans who once laughed at Shrek's adventures will be the ones bringing their children to theaters this time. For them, it's not just another sequel, it's a nostalgic trip back to their own childhood. In fact, that returning fan base will probably be the one driving most of the box office numbers. What's funny is that not too long ago, DreamWorks made it pretty clear they had no plans for a fifth movie. The studio heads believed Shrek's story had already wrapped up perfectly and that the franchise had reached its natural conclusion. But as the years went by, rumors and leaks started piling up. Around 2019, serious talks about a possible comeback began to surface. And since then, the project has been slowly but steadily moving forward. The script was finished, the original cast signed their contracts, but production just kept getting delayed. At one point, Shrek 5 was set to hit theaters in July 2026, then it got pushed to December of that year, and now it's been delayed again to July 2027. The official reason is production delays. DreamWorks says the team simply needs more time to complete the animation process and that the film hasn't yet entered full production mode. So progress is happening, just not at full speed yet. Still, pushing the release back by a whole year feels like more than just technical issues. 2026 is already packed with big animated releases from Disney, Pixar, and Illumination, meaning the competition at the box office would be brutal. Some insiders believe DreamWorks simply wanted to avoid that crowded release window and give Shrek more breathing room. But honestly, it's hard to believe a studio would be worried about competition when we're talking about Shrek. This franchise is more than just an animated movie. It's a cultural event. Every new Shrek film automatically becomes an industry moment. So chances are the delay isn't just about timing or production. DreamWorks might just be taking extra time to make sure this comeback feels truly special. After all, this isn't just another sequel, it's the return of a legend. Right now, no animated project has more hype around it than Shrek 5. Even that short, early teaser, which felt more like a test clip than a real trailer, set the internet on fire. Thousands of comments, memes, reactions, and of course a bit of hate. But honestly, what else did we expect? After 2 decades, Shrek isn't just a movie character anymore. He's a pop culture icon. Back in the day, Shrek helped DreamWorks go toe-to-toe with Disney, even winning the very first Oscar for Best Animated Feature, and proving that fairy tales didn't have to be sugary or safe. They could be clever, funny, and a little rebellious. So now, with DreamWorks bringing Shrek back nearly 20 years later, fans aren't just hoping for another chapter, they're expecting a full-blown return to form, a comeback packed with heart, satire, and that signature charm that made Shrek an icon in the first place. And that's where the problem started. According to many fans, the first teaser didn't really feel like Shrek anymore. Sure, the green skin and iconic ears were there, but everything else looked off, like it belonged to a completely different movie. The animation felt overly smooth and polished, almost too clean. The characters looked like they'd been pulled straight out of other DreamWorks films like The Croods or The Boss Baby, and that's exactly what sparked a wave of backlash. The original Shrek movies had a deliberately rough, slightly gritty texture. The animation wasn't perfect, and that was the point. It gave the films their quirky charm and perfectly matched their satirical tone. But this new look, it feels like something straight out of the modern Disney-fied era. Fans started saying DreamWorks had forgotten what made them special in the first place. Their ability to mock Disney's story formulas, not imitate them. To be fair, it's also easy to understand where the studio's coming from. It's been 17 years since Shrek Forever After. Animation has evolved, audience expectations have shifted, and DreamWorks clearly wants to appeal to a new generation of viewers. The tricky part is finding that sweet spot between modernizing the look and preserving the soul of the original. It's possible that the teaser we saw was more of a test run, a way to gauge fan reaction before locking in the final style. If that's the case, it definitely worked. The response was loud and clear, and now DreamWorks has a real opportunity to rethink their visual direction. But it's not just the visuals stirring up controversy. Fans are equally concerned about the story and overall message of the film. The animation industry today feels softer, safer, and more predictable than ever. And that's the opposite of what made the original Shrek movies so great. Those films fearlessly poked fun at everything: Disney tropes, romantic cliches, social norms, even politics. Shrek was essentially a family-friendly postmodern satire, wrapped in fairy tale comedy. Kids saw a funny story about an ogre, while adults caught the clever subtext and cultural digs underneath. With Shrek 5 though, there's a growing fear that DreamWorks might play it too safe. The teaser introduced Shrek and Fiona's now grown daughter, Felicia, voiced by Zendaya, and that's where the second wave of backlash hit. According to leaks, the story centers around Felicia's journey of self-discovery as she struggles to find acceptance in a world that judges her for her looks and origins. On paper, that's fine. But it's also a story we've already seen dozens of times in Turning Red, Ruby Gillman, and countless others. And that's exactly what worries longtime fans. Shrek was never about self-healing or personal validation. It was about turning fairy tales upside down and holding up a mirror to the absurdity of the world around us. The first movie alone is packed with sharp metaphors, biting humor, and social commentary that still feels relevant today. Back then, DreamWorks was ahead of its time. Now, there's a real risk the franchise might get trapped by the times, overly sanitized, predictable, and stripped of the edge that once made it legendary. It really feels like, despite the return of familiar names, the original cast, producers, and even part of the old writing team, the soul of the original Shrek might be slipping away. DreamWorks doesn't quite feel like the same studio that once fearlessly took on Disney with a smirk, and that's worrying. But before we start writing off Shrek 5 entirely, there's still reason to hope. DreamWorks has already proven they can bring their classic franchises back to life. Just look at Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, one of the best animated films in years, and for many the studio's finest work since the original Shrek. That movie showed that DreamWorks still knows how to strike the perfect balance: stunning animation, mature storytelling, and genuine emotional depth. The Last Wish nailed everything. A gorgeous visual style, one of the best villains of the decade, deeply written characters, and a powerful message about fear and mortality. If DreamWorks can bring that same energy to Shrek 5, mixing a fresh visual approach with the sharp satire and charm of the originals, then the movie could be a massive hit not just for longtime fans, but for a whole new generation. The problem is, based on that first teaser, it doesn't really look that way yet. The visuals are divisive, the tone feels off, and the magic just isn't quite there. Still, there's hope that DreamWorks is aware of all this and will use the extra time from the delay to polish things up. The return of the original voice cast is a huge positive sign. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz are all back, and their chemistry, timing, and personality are what make these characters come alive in the first place. As for Shrek's kids, things are still a mystery. The teaser only showed Felicia, the daughter voiced by Zendaya. There's been no sign of her brothers or Donkey and Dragons kids, though it would make perfect sense for them to be grown up by now. We'll probably see more of them as the release gets closer. The villain, on the other hand, is a total mystery. No official info at all. There's been some online buzz that John Lithgow, the voice of Lord Farquaad, has expressed interest in returning. That's not exactly confirmation, but who knows? Maybe we'll get a fun cameo or a nostalgic mirror scene for longtime fans. Still, it looks like the new antagonist might be tied to Felicia's story. From what we've seen, she's shaping up to be the film's main character, with Shrek taking on more of a mentor and father role. If the first movie was about Shrek learning to open up and be himself, this one might focus on him learning to be a dad, which isn't a bad idea, but it doesn't entirely feel like Shrek. His strength has always been in his rebellious, self-aware humor and his ability to tear down cliches. A story about generational growth and identity could easily turn into something predictable, something we've already seen again and again in modern animated films. We saw the same thing happen with The Last Kung Fu Panda, where the story leaned heavily on legacy and passing the torch. It created this weird déjà vu, like DreamWorks is stuck repeating the same growing up formula every time they revisit an old property. And if they do that again with Shrek 5, the movie risks losing the personality that made it special in the first place. But it's not too late to fix that. DreamWorks just needs to remember who they are, the studio that once roasted Disney and walked away with an Oscar for it. They don't need to copy anyone. What they need to do is make a real Shrek movie, crude but clever, bold but heartfelt, funny yet meaningful. That's the only way this franchise can truly make a comeback and reclaim its place as a cultural phenomenon. But no matter how it turns out, Shrek 5 is going to dominate its opening weekend. That name alone is enough to fill theaters, but keeping audiences there, that'll take real effort. And it seems like DreamWorks knows it. They're keeping everything tightly under wraps. No villain reveals, no final visuals, and that usually means they're deep in the process of getting it right.